10 years ago, there was a lot of information, but not the same way that there is now. And 10 years ago is when I brought my son home from second grade. And, you know, like one of the things that happens when we have all this information is we feel pulled in a million different directions. And we're like, is it gentle parenting? Is it conscious parenting? Is it respectful parenting? Is it, and like, what should I be doing? Should I be authoritarian or permissive or authoritative? And I'm like, really, guys, this is not what it's about. What it's about is like, we need our kids to feel seen and heard. They need a guide and a mentor, and you are exactly the person for this job.
Hi there, welcome back to another episode of Teachable Moments. I'm Lori Petro, the founder of Teach Through Love, and today it is my privilege to welcome a very special guest. She is an accomplished educator and author with a deep passion for supporting parents of neurodivergent children. So if your child is considered strong-willed, highly sensitive, spirited, explosive, or neurodivergent, autism, ADHD, any of those, Dayna Abraham is here to help. She is the best-selling author of the Super Kids Activity Guide and Sensory Processing 101. She's an educator, a parent of 3 neurodivergent children, and an ADHD adult herself. Dayna's on a mission to create a more accepting world, one challenging kid at a time. And you guys know that this is what I have a very special place in my heart for anyone who's supporting highly sensitive or neurodivergent kids. You know that. She's also the founder of Lemon Lime Adventures parenting website and the creator of the Calm the Chaos program. And that is the name of her new book, which she is here to talk all about with us today. Do that. There it is, you guys. Calm the Chaos. That is a fail-proof roadmap for parenting even the most challenging kids. And as you know, this is my favorite because I was a challenging kid. And the reason I even started Teach Through Love was because no one understood me. My parents didn't get me. And that was way back a million years ago when I was growing up, and nobody really had information out there for kids that are just, well, we'll get into it, but it's that kid, right? The kid that's too much, that's too sensitive, that has that's too dysregulated, whatever it is. These kids can be really challenging for parents. I know I was. So it's great to have resources like this, and I can't wait to talk about Calm the Chaos. So let's bring Dayna on right now. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing first of all, thank you for writing this book.
Oh, I am so excited to be here. And I heard your intro and I just was like, oh, we are kindred spirits.
You totally, like everything. I love this for so many reasons. One of them is that you chunk it down so beautifully, and then you add these amazing doodles. I don't know if that's going to be anybody else's, like, one of their favorite things, but for me, that helps my brain understand things, even like everything. Mm-hmm. It just, like, all of that helps me. It keeps me on track. It chunks it down. It feels like it's not so overwhelming because we know that there's no time for more overwhelm. We already have all of that, right? So let's dive right into it, because I feel like everything that you're doing, you've reached millions of parents. So you're like getting the word out there and being able to expand the conversation so that we have more understanding out there in the world is what I absolutely love. So I just want to dive in, get to know you, why you wrote this book. There's a million questions that I could ask you. I will try to refrain.
I am an open book. You can ask me whatever you want.
Okay. Well, so first of all, I know that your personal journey inspired a lot of what you're doing here. Mm-hmm. And I know that you had challenges. You've got 3 neurodivergent children, as you said. You're an ADHD adult. I mean, you're speaking the language of everything that I know and that I realized as an adult myself. So do you want to share a little bit with us about your journey? And I know you shared in the book, so you don't have to give away too much because we want everybody to go out and buy the book. But can you share a little bit about what inspired you?
Absolutely. So as you said, I grew up as a neurodivergent kid, but didn't know it. I was completely undiagnosed. And I was the kid who did all right. I mean, I, definitely got into a lot of trouble in high school, but no trouble that my parents really ever knew about, if that makes sense.
Mm.
And so,
Yeah.
it
You're going to
wasn't until
fly under the radar.
yeah, definitely, for sure. But my mom and I had a very volatile relationship because I was so opposite of her. Like my mom wanted me to wear pink and rainbows and bows in my hair, and I wanted a black bedroom. Like that's how different we were. And so I grew up feeling like, was I adopted? Like, do I not like belong in this family? And I really didn't know why I didn't fit in the family. And it wasn't until I became an adult that I realized that we were all so different in the way that our brains are wired that we interact with the world differently. And my brother is bipolar. And so growing up, nobody knew that either. So he was kicked out of every school he had ever gone to. And I was on the receiving end of his aggression from a very young age. Matter of fact, one of the stories that got pulled from the book because it was a little lengthy, we had to pull some stuff out. And one of the stories, when my editor wrote me, she goes, I hate to pull the story because it's so powerful, but it was all about how I came up with one of the plans in the book that I talk about. And it's this like, what do you do when your kid is, losing it and they are using aggression towards you and you're trying to remain calm, but it's triggering your own trauma. It's triggering all these memories of your own stuff. And so there was a story in the book of how um my this like uh tie-dyed t-shirt that I picked out of the laundry one day that was my brother's and decided to wear it. And that was a day that he decided I could not wear his tie-dye t-shirt. And so I had to use the stop, breathe, anchor technique that I teach in the book to to find my quote unquote happy place while he just made sure that shirt did not get worn by me at any
Yeah.
cause. And so I grew up with that. And then going into teaching, my favorite kids were the ones who had a paper trail behind them, the ones that, as you said, too loud, too quiet even, but they were too much or not enough according to other people. And their parents would come with their heads down and they would say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, here you go." And the teachers would talk about them in the teachers lounge. And I was always so excited to get those kids because I knew that they had so much more to them than what others were seeing. And so when I became a parent, I'm like, I got this gig figured out, right? Like I had a hard childhood so that I could be a good parent. I had it hard when I taught in the classroom so that I could be a good parent. Like Ed McMahon's going to show up at my doorstep and he's going to have this big old check and a big trophy and a balloons and it's going to say world's best mother. And I'm going to be like, yes, I did it. I win the
Yeah.
prize. And
You're
it
like,
was
I know exactly what they need because I didn't get it. I'm ready. I totally know what
the
you
exact
mean.
opposite. Yeah, I just completely felt like an absolute failure for the first 7 years of parenting, despite all my education background, despite all the things that I thought I knew, and all the things I was still learning. And I felt so ill-equipped to help my son. And when he was in second grade, it became just quite evident that the traditional school setting wasn't working for him. And and so we made that hard decision of bringing him home, homeschooling him, and we had the means to do that, and I know not all parents do. And so I was able to bring him home and kind of navigate how to figure him out, like how to understand him, how to help him, and everything out there looked so picture perfect that like, I was like, "Am I really the only one who is completely out of touch with how to help their kid?" And that's why I got started online, really, is because I wanted to find one other person who wasn't struggling or who was struggling like I was. I wanted to know that I wasn't alone, and I wanted that person to know they weren't alone. And so that's how it all started. And over time, it started morphing into me sharing some of the things I was learning and then iterating that process over and over again. And, so many people talk about the book being really organized, but it's like, it is simplicity on the far side of complexity. It got really complex and messy for a long time before it got to what it is now. But it was tested with real humans, real families around the world. And I always say, like myself, my team, and we live and breathe the framework that I share in the book. It is how we live our life. It's a way of being, not just a couple of strategies that we want you to learn. And that's where that passion behind the book comes from.
I love it. I love it. And you're so right, because it's a roadmap. Like it says on the front, it's a roadmap. And it really is. And I love that you said people say that it's so organized. There is so much in here, but it feels really manageable because, again, chunking it down, doodles, it's broken up. It is like a map. It says, kind of shows you, and we'll get into that because I have some questions about that, but it kind of just shows you like, here is the process. And oh, you got stuck here. Well, here's the tools. Remember, put these in here. And okay, let's keep moving along the path. And there's so much. What I love is that you said that you were determined in the book. You said you were determined to change your son's trajectory.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but it's not perfect, it's still really messy. Even, and my daughter's 17, I know your kids are grown up too like that, and there is still lots of messiness that can come into this. So I always say conscious, not perfect. And I think you would echo that sentiment, that this is not, we're not saying that this is going to solve the challenges that are really intense kids have. I think when you talked about, you didn't want to feel like you were alone, because you like, you knew everything coming in. You were ready and armed to sort of parent in this way that would, it sounds like, build connection, like all of that was ready to go. And yet there was still this intensity that was overwhelming. And I think, can you speak to that a little bit, and how parents can find that, just that inspiration to go on? Because I think there's a lot of judgment for those kids. It's like, oh, well, you have to parent more, and your consequences aren't firm enough, and all of this. And then they think, oh, well, parenting without, by connection is definitely not what we're supposed to be doing, then, because my kid is too intense for that. And I think that can pull them away from the direction that they really need to go. Do you have any, and this was actually like my last question, but it came up now
That's
because
okay.
of the direction.
Yeah,
So
we can talk about it.
can you just speak to that before we
I was just
dive
on a
into your
call with
book?
someone recently, and she said, "Oh, gentle parenting never been for me because I mean my kid's not gentle, so I can't be gentle." And I think that there's so much information. It's both a plus and a minus. There's so much information out there for parents these days. 10 years ago, there was a lot of information, but not the same way that there is now. And 10 years ago is when I brought my son home from second grade. And, you know, like one of the things that happens when we have all this information is we feel pulled in a million different directions. And we're like, is it gentle parenting? Is it conscious parenting? Is it respectful parenting? Is it, and like, what should I be doing? Should I be authoritarian or permissive or authoritative? And I'm like, really, guys, this is not what it's about. What it's about is like, we need our kids to feel seen and heard. They need a guide and a mentor. And you are exactly the person for this job. And I think that that's so important for parents to hear, because otherwise we get so stuck in, let me get it right. Let me get it perfect. What's the right way? What's the right way? And there's research that shows we don't have to get it right. We're going to mess up. Like, go ahead and just be like, all right, like, hey, friend, talking to yourself, like, hey, friend, you are going to mess up. Like, go ahead and be ready. It's kind of like if we were going to go swimming for the very first time, right? We dive into the deep end, and we're like, we're going to go swimming. And we expect ourselves to have the perfect stroke. We're going to be like, no, we're going to totally look a hot mess, but man, it's going to be so much fun, right? We're going to have a lot of fun when we allow ourselves to mess up. But if we're trying to be an Olympic swimmer the first time we go into the pool, we're going to beat ourselves up, and we're not going to notice the small steps we're making forward. We're not going to notice the fun we're having or who we're surrounded by. And I think that that's what we need to do as parents. And that's what I wish parents knew more than anything else, is that they're not failing, that their kids aren't broken, and that there is a path forward. It doesn't have to look, yes, I've laid out a roadmap, but your kid is unique and your family is unique. And I think if parents understood that it's not like one and done, like I'm going to try this thing and then it's going to be perfect, then they wouldn't expect so much out of one tool, one strategy, one way of doing things, and it would be easier to allow for mistakes of their own and mistakes of their kids.
Yeah, it's so true. There's not just like you're not just implementing a tool here and then like sort of going, wiping your hands, being like, I did it.
Yeah, I
Is
like to say
everybody
that
is
you
everybody
can't,
ready?
like, we live in such a world of instant gratification. And I like to say that you can't Amazon Prime your parenting. You can't be like, all right, so I'm putting in this order for more connection. I'm going to do one-on-one time. And now my kid's going to love me. Like, no, it doesn't work like that. Especially if you're doing something like the age old, like connection before correction. Well, if you're connecting and then right after you are correcting your kid, they're going to see right through that. And so you
Yes.
have to connect because you really truly want to connect with your kid and you want to know your kid for who they are, accept them for who they are, even if they're complete opposites of you. You have to, as a parent, that's one of the most important things we can do is just accept them for who they are and then guide them through some of the bumps and roadblocks that they might come up against because this is who they are.
Yeah. So I know that you have 4 elements that are really important. And you outline the book, it's divided into like 5 sections, right? There's 5 areas, but within that you repeat this framework over and over. And it's the YCUE. Is that
It's UQ. So you,
Oh,
like the
you
whole word, and then
yes.
connect, understand, empower is the UQ. So yeah, we can
UQ.
do it.
Oh, right. So it's why I was spelling it out, but it was
Yeah.
UQ is like how you could say it. Yes.
Yeah.
So will you explain that for us to
Yeah,
sort
absolutely.
of outline how that works?
So again, with this Amazon Prime parenting idea and with the insurgence of Instagram and Pinterest and Facebook, social media, all these things, we see this. If you just do this one hack, if you just do this one thing, and parents get inundated with trying the one thing, it doesn't work. They think then they're failing or their kid is something must be wrong with their kid. When it's not that quick of a fix. You can't That's not how parenting works when you're dealing with a human on human. Like it just doesn't work that way. What am I missing, right? When I brought my son home and I had all this child development and I knew about connected parenting and positive parenting, I'm like, what am I missing? There has to be one thing that's just going to unlock everything. And there wasn't. There were these elements that, when put, you need all of them. And that nobody wants to tell you that you need all the elements because that's overwhelming. But you do. You need more than just one piece. And so, what we found is it's a lot like baking a cake. You need all of them, but you don't have to know how to use it to its fullest extent. So, when you think of baking a cake, you can bake a box cake and you use like the powder that's in the box. You need an egg, a liquid, and voila, you have your cake. You can make the exact same cake by hand, and it's basically a flour, a sugar, an egg, and a liquid. They're not exactly the same, right? But you know what I mean. And then you can like get as advanced as baking wedding cakes and these elaborate cakes that look like sofas and rocket ships and all this. But it's still the same basic ingredients. It's a flour, it's a liquid, it's a something that sweetens it, and something that holds it all together. It's still those same 4 basic ingredients, but if you start out baking a cake trying to make the rocket ship, you're going to utterly fail. It's going to look a hot
You
mess.
get so frustrated thinking
So
that you're
frustrated.
doing it wrong or your kids are doing it wrong. Everybody's doing it wrong.
Yeah,
This
and you're
isn't
just like end up
working.
with flour everywhere, right? So,
Yeah.
so taking the analogy of cake away, there are these 4 basic principles that, when you live by these 4 principles and you combine them, you really can navigate any challenging situation. And so it comes down to, if you think of 3 concentric circles that are kind of in a Venn diagram, they meet in the middle. You have connection, which we, as parents that are listening to you, they know about this, right? Like we hear it in every parenting realm that connection is incredibly important. So you have connection that has to be there. but there also has to be an understanding of why is this happening? Where is it coming from? What is the root of this struggle, of this challenge? And, what are the nuances here that maybe, which most parents aren't led to, they like, what is the age appropriateness? Like, what is the child development behind this? What is the brain science behind this? What is, right? You really need to know a little bit of that to understand if your expectations even meet what you're asking for, if meet the child's ability level. And then we have empowerment, which is incredibly important. It can't be off balance. It can't be that the parent is the end all be all, like, do this, say this. I set the rules, you listen to me. But it also can't be the kid is completely running the show, because they do need some, I like to think of them as guide rails. They need some guidance along the way to help them skill build and problem solve and learn life skills as they're growing and developing and navigating life. And so those three are really important, and for a long time that's all I taught was connection, understanding, and empowerment. And we realized that we had many parents who were still stuck and they couldn't move forward, and it was because they were missing where it all came together, the you piece, which is being able to have a calm presence, being able to address your own biases, your own prejudice, your own beliefs, and your own trauma, being able to, be that safe place for your kid. And then also being able to kind of put blinders on and say, this is the thing I'm going to focus on right now. So my kid doesn't feel like I'm constantly trying to fix them. It's like, this is the focus right now. And all of that holds the rest of it together. And you can have that at a basic level or a more advanced level. But those four pieces, if you approach any challenging situation with those four pieces, it's going to make it so much easier to navigate.
I love it. I love it. It's so, and it's that you piece, at the, I don't know where you see that in that Venn diagram, but it's just kind of
Right,
like,
right. Comes in
is it
together.
right?
Yeah. So it
Right in the
holds it
center.
all
Yeah.
together. I call it the linchpin. It holds it.
Oh, yes. It's okay. I was listening to the audiobook, you guys. I was love the doodles, but I knew that I needed to get through the book fast enough. So I was listening to the audiobook even more. So I love the visual of it. This framework that you use, you have lots of cool little, like, there's just so much, you guys. I don't even know where to start. But there's a couple of things that I wanted to talk about that I loved. And one of them is the concept of anchors.
Mhm.
And if you could explain what that is. And the other one is oh gosh, let me look at my name. Oh, the freak out timer.
Yes, yes. All right.
Because this was really important. So can you explain those two things for
Yeah,
us?
absolutely. So the idea behind the freak out timer is just this idea that no matter where you're at in your journey, there are going to be bad days. There are going to be big moments that happen. There are going to be days that, like I was just talking to a friend of mine, and he just got a brand new car. He's like, after we get off this call, I've got to go to the body shop because on Saturday, someone rear ended my car. And I was like, your brand new car? He's like, yes. So he then talks about how the next day he was supposed to be teaching his teenager how to drive. And he was like, and I could not remain calm with him at all. And I'm like, well, of course, because on Saturday you had like a pretty traumatic event. I'm glad everyone's okay, but you just got a brand new car and you got into a fender bender. That is upsetting to you and to your nervous system and all the things. And so the idea of the freak out timer is having a space to be able to feel those emotions, to be able to acknowledge that you feel confused, that you feel overwhelmed, that you feel stressed out, that you feel guilty, that you feel sad, that you are pissed off. Like, it is just, doesn't matter what your feeling is. I think a lot of times we think that some of those feelings are valid as parents and some of them somehow make us a bad parent. And the freak out timer allows us to just acknowledge that all these feelings are feelings and they are okay. We can feel them, and it gives us space to process it as and and it has an end point so that you don't get so sucked into the negativity spiral of my life is terrible. It's never going to get better. Why do I even try? Every time we do this, it gets there. It's okay to think all those things. It's okay to process all those things. But at some point, you need something to pull you out of it. And the freak out timer has such a process that at the end, you find a next step, a simple next step. And the next step, I always say it's a simple next step that's so simple, it's impossible to fail. So that's like taking a big deep breath, that's taking a sip of water, that's phoning a friend, whatever it is that's so simple, it's impossible to fail.
That
That's
was
what
one of
you're
my
doing.
favorite.
Yes,
That was one of my favorite things, the tiny next steps. Like
tiny next step.
the tiniest things. Like we don't have to come up with the entire new plan at the end of the
Mhm.
freak out. And this is so beneficial because I know how many times parents, even if they'll just retell the story to like 5 different people over the, like, oh, I told this one person, but let me get it out again. I got to tell this person. And we just relive the drama and we
Mhm.
sort of get our nervous system all ramped up again.
Mhm.
And you recommend doing, if you can, I guess, the freak out timer with a partner so that you kind of
I
have
think
that.
it's better for a partner. I find that it works better. Obviously, and we're not all good at self-coaching. Like there's a whole coaching industry for a reason because we need that dialogue. And so being able to have this with a friend, being able to have this with someone in your community, being able, and it's funny because just the other day I had a really rough moment. I got one of my first negative reviews, which is going to happen, right? Like you write a book, put it out in the world. And so this one, and I was preparing myself. I mean, we work online, we see things all the time. So it's
The
not the first time
fact
I've
that you
gotten,
read it, you
oh,
even read it, girl.
I know. I maybe shouldn't have, but I read it. It was a 2 star. And it hit every one of my insecurities. And I think that's the hardest part is that if, when we talk before putting the book out there, it's like, what are your fears? What's holding you back from writing the book? And if I was to list them out, she hit every single one. And so I went to my community and I said, all right, guys, I got my first sting. And I need a moment to just hold space. And they said, all right, set your timer. I'm here for you. I'm listening. And then they checked back in today and they said, how are you feeling today? And I'm like, honestly, I feel so much better because you guys, one, didn't give advice. You just held space. You were able to hear me, see me, feel me. Every single person was like, your feelings are valid. Let it out. And here's what I also know to be true. And it was like so helpful to have someone to hold space for me.
Yes, and if anybody's wondering what hold space means, because I think that sometimes they'll hear that term and they'll say, people think, what is that? It's exactly what it is.
Mhm.
Just
It's just
exactly what
knowing
Dana
that
just
someone's
described.
on the other side, someone's there. And
Yeah.
what's beautiful in our community when this happens, people will do a hashtag and they'll set a timer. And then it starts happening in the comments. And if you've ever been in a Facebook group where one person posts, they then get 100 comments of 100 different directions they could go. And the idea between the freak out timer is that that's not what happens. Like they'll
Yeah.
post, and as soon as it gets, we call it being caught, as soon as it gets caught by another person and they say, I'm here, how bad is it? Everybody else sits back and just watches. And so you just
Mm.
know, and you'll do it. You'll just sit there and you'll refresh and you'll make sure they're okay, but you're not saying anything. You might hit the love button or the care button, or whatever. And it's just
That's
kind of happening. And after they found their next step, you'll see all these comments flood in saying, I was watching you. I could have set my own timer that sounds just like this. I've been through something so similar. Like, I'm just here for you. And
I love that.
it's so beautiful.
It is that community aspect. For me, I always say that's one of the we don't parent in isolation. Why should we learn how to, connect with we have to do it with each other. And that is just, I love that. It's a beautiful example of how
Yeah.
the community can be there to support. Even if you I mean, this sounds like it's all online in your community. So even you're not even there in the room with people and this can be done.
Mhm.
So if you're just online and you don't have anybody in real life, that don't let that
Don't let that
discourage
stop
you
you.
from
Yes.
from stopping you. Okay,
Mhm.
so how about anchors? Can you
Yeah.
tell me
So
about anchors? Because you
anchors.
use that a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so anchors are part of that U piece. So the set a timer can happen at any stage of the journey, at any day, anytime something's happening. I don't recommend it happening the moment that something bad happens because usually you need to kind of ride through it and get out of it and then you can process afterwards, right? But it's just that concept of being able to process the emotions. On the opposite side is, I mean, it's not the opposite, but it kind of feels like it. The anchor is about reminding your brain that you're safe, or your nervous system that you're safe. And having something that allows you to be able to still show up for your kids, to be there no matter how hard it is. And you're kind of pausing that processing. You're pausing the fixing, the doing, the solving, any of that for the moment, because when things are really hard, you're not going to be able to show up. So I've got actually a really good analogy for this one. So this is part of the Ride the Storm plan. And I was telling some of my students about this the other day. I recently we had a tornado rip through Arkansas, and one of my really good friends that I went to high school with, he posted, and he and his family, their house, was affected. So he's telling the story, and he's actually walking through the house. And if you don't know, when you have a tornado, you go to the most inner room, or you go somewhere that doesn't have any windows, which is typically, we don't really have basements in the South. So you go to a hall, or you go to the bathroom. And so his family, he wasn't home at the time, his wife and his daughter and his son had to go to the bathroom, and you put something on top of you, pillows, a mattress, something like that, so in case there's flying debris, it can't hit you. And then you just wait it out. You can't do anything else. That's it. You just wait it out. And thinking about the damage doesn't really help you. Trying to fix or minimize the damage doesn't really help you in the moment. You really just have to wait it out. And what's even, like, really to bring this point even home even more, is when he's showing the video of his house, the entire roof is off his house. He walks into the bathroom, and you can see the bathtub where all of his family was sitting, and the roof was ripped off while they were sitting there. And you don't move. You stay still, you hunker down, and you ride it out. And if you're thinking, oh my gosh, this bad thing's going to happen, oh my gosh, we're not going to make it through it, you're not going to be able to access the skills you need to be able to ride it out, to be able to get through this safely. And because they were able to go, all right, we're safe, we're here, we're together, we've got this, we can do this, they were able to ride it out together. And it's very similar when we're dealing with really challenging situations with our kids, or really challenging situations with our partner, or our boss, or our friend, or ourselves sometimes, is we have to remind ourselves, hey brain, that is not a bear over there. Like, you are not in danger, even though there is probably danger. You have to say, you're going to get through this. We're going to be okay. And you have to use something that your brain believes. And so a lot of times you'll see a lot of these affirmations out there, and things that are great, things that I even have in the book, like all behaviors communication. This is not about you. Like, your child's not giving you a hard time. They're having a hard time. But if you don't believe that in the moment, and you're telling yourself all behaviors communication, you're like, I don't care if all behaviors communication, this is really crappy, right? Like, then you're going to get angry and resentful and frustrated. So it has to be something that you believe, even if it's just a physical anchor, like you're giving, doing a pressure point, or you're taking your deep breaths, or you're rubbing on a fidget, or something that really actually keeps you present in the moment, instead of reacting to the quick response that your brain wants to naturally do.
Yeah, and that's what so many parents do, right? And me
Mhm.
too. Like, when I say so many parents, I always include myself, like, because we want an end to that bad feeling, or
Mhm.
that internal chaos, or that internal discontent, or whatever it is,
Mhm.
or the external circumstances, and we don't want to take the time. Like, I
Mhm.
sometimes can, if I'm having a tough day or stress, like, I can see myself running through what I should be doing and what I really have the resources available to do. There's sometimes a big, big wide divide between that and the pause, that anchoring in, which is
Mhm.
to stop everything. Like,
Mhm.
that means no discussion, right? That means we're not
Not
trying to get the kids to
no.
quote unquote change their behavior. I mean, we're never really trying to do that. But in terms of how parents think, right? We're not going to
Yeah.
try to push any kind of agenda forward. We're not going to even try to like figure out maybe how to connect. We're just going to sort of go silent and wait for cues.
Yes. So
It
let me,
sounds like.
I want to share like a parenting example, if that's okay. So Michelle
Yeah.
in our community, I'm just going to do my best to paraphrase here, but she posted a big win. We like to celebrate all the small progress we're making. And she said, she's from the South. So she said, y'all, I stayed calm through the entire yelling, throwing, breaking things storm this morning. It's the first time I've ever made it through an entire storm. So my son was furious with another child, right? So they have names, nicknames. So son one was furious with son two about breaking one of his toys that the other one continued to deny breaking. So later, the son walked past him and just hit him. Saw the whole thing happen. And then he promptly denied he did it, which completely sent the other son over the edge. So as he was shouting and throwing my craft things, I continually ran a body check and just repeated, he needs me to be the calm. It was a major struggle for me to keep it together. When something broke, I reminded myself it's just stuff. And then I went back to a body scan and then repeating, he needs me to be calm. The whole episode lasted less than 5 minutes because I stayed calm. Imagine that. Not adding my chaos diffused the situation in 5 minutes instead of 20. Like that is the perfect
There it
example. I
is.
can't come up with a different
I
scenario.
I have chills because she worked so hard in that moment. Like it brings tears to my eyes because I know how hard it is to just get through it without whatever reactionary pattern maybe that she had before.
Mhm.
Mm. So that I want to ask you one more thing. Do you have time
Yes, of
for
course.
one more?
Yes.
And it comes from what you just said, and there's something that you said that made me think of it, and I don't remember what that was, but it made me want to ask you about energy boosts and drains because it's like we have to start to build our reserves enough to stay to like she worked to achieve that, right? So it was the first time that that had ever happened. How can you talk about energy boosts and drains and how that can like add or detract to that tolerance that we're building?
100%. So, especially when you're in situations like that on a regular basis, or you're in what I call survival mode and you're just making it through day after day after day, you feel like you have no time. You feel like mothering is or parenting is draining you. And when we don't feed into ourselves, we don't have enough to give to others. Now, we all hear that, and then we roll our eyes when we hear self care, but the truth of the matter is that we all carry around these little phones, right? Most of us do at least. And I have not met someone who doesn't plug it in at night to make sure that it has full battery in the morning because you wouldn't make it through your day if you didn't plug it in overnight. But as humans, we say, "Oh, we're fine. We're okay. I don't need to work on myself." But if we don't give ourselves enough energy, then when our kid throws our things, when our kid talks back to us, when our kid refuses to go to school, when our kid is having a really hard time, we're not going to have anything left to be able to muster that patience, that calm. Then we beat ourselves up because we didn't remain calm or we weren't able to show up how we want to. And so the idea of energy boost and drains is part of the 5 minute energy plan. And I actually, the more I've thought about the book and the pieces in it, I think every single one along the journey is a habit. It's a way of being, not something to do. And so you have your stop, breathe, anchor that we talked about. That was one piece of the ride the storm plan. The boost and drains is one piece of the time and energy reserves plan.
Can
And
I just can I just tell people the 5 stages that
yes,
you have? Because
of
I know we
course.
keep referring to them and I didn't want to give too much, but just so people know, we have 5 stages and you frame them in terms of a storm and all of those analogies. I love the anchoring or the metaphors and things that fit right in there. But stage 1 is surviving the storm. Stage 2 is your energy reserves. Stage 3 is the calm at the center of the storm. Stage 4 is no more storm chasing. And stage 5 is building a storm-proof infrastructure. Now, we don't need to tell everybody because we want them to buy the book what all that is, but I just wanted to give them, and you can kind of tell from the titles what that refers to. But I just wanted to give people a little bit more info because I know we kept referring to them, but I didn't exactly give them at the beginning.
Okay. So yeah, so the first stage, ride the storm, most of it, I like to think of that as your plan until you have a plan that works. It's like just you're like, I'm gonna use this
Just
until I have a plan
buckle
that
down and
actually
figure
works.
it out.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
hunker down. Yeah, it's your hunker down plan. And then your time and energy plan really is the one that we all skip over because we just feel like, no, I need to fix, no, I need to solve, I need to get this to end. And so that plan is so vital, even if all you do is boost and drains. And this is just understanding your own body and understanding what boosts me, like what gives me energy. We all have things that we could do. Like talking to you, I have no idea how much time has passed right now, but I could talk to you all day and it would feel like I've talked to you for 20 minutes. And there are other things we can do that feel like we've been doing them forever and we've only been doing them for 10 minutes. They just absolutely drain us. If my husband wanted me to, let's say, organize the attic, it would take me forever to do. I'd probably make it really messy and then I would move on to something else. That's probably what I would do, honestly. Because that's just not where my expertise is. That's not a thing that excites me or boosts me. Whereas there are some people that just like, they're like, yes, give me a Saturday. Let me organize the kitchen. Like, no, that is not me. For some of you, that might be. And so it's super unique to yourself. To me, like talking with people boost me, but for introverts, that drains you. And so knowing what boosts you, what drains you is really helpful in your energy reserves. And if you can just remove one drain, and a lot of times that is checking your email multiple times a day, that is worrying about things that you can't control. And I like it could be watching the news more often than you actually need to. So I'm all about like checking in. Is everything safe? Okay, I'm out. Right? Like that's it. But like yesterday, my dad sends me this text. It's taken a lot of work, but one of my drains is to not worry about things I can't control. That's one of the things I'm working on because it drains me. I won't sleep. I'll stay up all night. I'll end up tossing and turning. The last text I got from my dad last night, I kid you not, was my phone is about to die. I'm in the ER. I'll talk to you later.
Oh.
I really quickly was like, wait, what? You can't do that.
That's not nice.
Not okay. But then I was like, I can't control this. Like if it was him, if he was in danger, he would have said something and he didn't. So I'm just gonna
Okay, so you
assume he's there with someone else and he's being a good friend. That's what I'm gonna assume. And then I went to bed. I woke up this morning and there was no message yet. And I was like, why were you at the ER? And then he was just like, oh, I was there with so and so. They were struggling. They're okay now. And I was like, okay, good. So I didn't lose sleep. Yay. I learned my,
over
so, and
over something
everything
you
was
can't
fine. It worked out
control.
fine. Right. Now, that's a pretty extreme example, and we can't all just like jump to that. But I can not check my email 20 times a day because how exhausting is that? Like every time you see the ding. One that's really simple, which might freak some people out, I have absolutely no notifications on my phone. So my phone is completely silent. Like I have no idea
How
when
do you
people are calling, texting, or anything because I have learned that if something is wrong at school, it will find a way to get a hold of me. And that means they'll either call my husband or they will find me. I have figured that out. If it is an emergency, I have always figured out people will find me. And I check it throughout the day, but I do not hear anything on my phone coming through because the noises are a drain. The ding, ding, like all the or whatever, like those are
Totally.
too
I
draining.
love like really just drilling down on your boosts and drains to be that even specific. We think of things like you said, self-care. We're like, yeah, whatever, I know what I can do. I like to take bubble baths and I like to drink hot coffee. No, this is like what's really draining your energy and what
Mhm.
really is, and beyond, like you said, introvert, extrovert, talking to people. Like I could talk all day about my favorite subjects, but I could definitely not talk all day in general. I'm gonna need, like, even after today, I have like 4 meetings in a row today. So tomorrow you won't be able to find me because I just will have to recoup for
Yeah.
everything. And I love doing this, but I know but to even like think on your phone, even to remove that kind of a distraction because you know it's going to drain your energy is so very specific.
Mhm.
And that just makes me think even more. So I'm sure it's making anybody who's watching just think really deeply about, you really have to know yourself. It's more than
Mhm.
just how do I parent my children and calm the chaos out there.
It's
It's
also, yeah, so
it's
much
an
in here.
inside, the you, right? The you. It's
It
the
is the
inside
you piece,
job.
yes.
Yeah,
And the
for
first 3
sure.
stages are all about you. They're about how you hunker down and you become the safe place. They're about how
Mm.
you get time and energy so you can weather any of the hard moments with your family, and they're about how you show up to diffuse the situation and be there for your family or your kids. It's not a jump into how do I fix my kid? How do I solve my kid? Which it's never about fixing your kid, just a hint, but it's not a jump to the behavior.
I love it.
Yeah.
There's so much I could ask you, but I'm going to wrap up here and I'm going to say thank you so much for sharing. I want everybody to go out and get Calm the Chaos. I can't wait to see this on the bestseller book because I know you've got some other bestsellers. So we're just going to add this right in there. Where can people find you, and any last thoughts that you have to help people calm that chaos inside for their family and bring a
Yeah,
little more
so
peace?
kind of the last thought is I just want, if you're listening to this and it has somehow brought up some emotions of feeling like you're not doing enough, or that you're somehow feeling, or that you should be, oh man, here's another thing I need to try or another thing I need to do. I want you to remember that you are not failing. You are exactly the parent your kid needs. And it's just about taking that big deep breath and saying, okay, what is my tiny next step? That's it, just a tiny next step. And Lori, you have a beautiful community. So just comment and say, I need support or I'm not alone, so that other people know, oh, here's another person that needs to know that they're not alone. And, or you could say, I'm here, just let us know that you're here. And we want you to know that you're not alone. And you're definitely not failing, especially if you've listened to this entire thing. That shows that you care, that you're showing up, that you're trying. And that's what matters. And then where you can find the book and other things. So if you can buy the book anywhere books are sold, but definitely go to calmthechaosbook.com and we've got some goodies for you when you put in your receipt. And then you can find me on all social channels at Calm the Chaos Parenting.
Thank you, Dana, so much for coming on. I'm a little tickled. I feel like just so excited to meet you. You know, it's kind of like
Me
you
too.
know people online, and I am the total introvert. And I think, excuse me, now I'm losing my voice, but I was thrilled to like see this book and to be able to have you come on and get to meet you and talk to you. So I hope it's the first time, but I hope it's not the last.
Absolutely not. We are going to find a way to stay connected. This has been amazing.
Yay, I love it. I'm so excited. And for everybody watching, thank you so much for joining us. Find Dana everywhere online at Calm the Chaos Parenting. Thank you, Dana, and everybody else. If you're watching, remember, it's about being conscious, not perfect.